This video was sponsored by Skillshare. Skillshare is an online service where you have access to a huge catalog of tutorials that give lessons on skills in multiple different fields. If this piques your interest, they're offering a free trial for the first 700 who click down below. You can find out more at the end of this video.
British brains, American brawn, and Russian blood won the war. When Stalin initially said those words, he spoke of the industrial might of the Americans. Guns, tanks, planes, ships. In World War II, the United States was a military production machine, an engine. Every engine needs that initial spark to awaken it. More importantly, something to fuel it. That spark for America was the Japanese attack on Pearl Harbor. That fuel was the urge for revenge. There's a reason the 20th century for America can be divided before Pearl Harbor and after. Before, the United States was an island. The public didn't want to give any more in the fight against the Axis other than weapons and supplies. That was, until the war came to them. The sneak attack on Pearl Harbor was the perfect combination to enrage an entire country. In the span of one day, isolationism became a thing of the past. So how would World War II have continued if Pearl Harbor was never attacked? Let's imagine one possible alternate timeline. It is December 7th, 1941. Everything is simply calm. And that's because Emperor Hirohito, a man with a weak hold on his militaristic generals, actually enforced his will. Japan will not carry out a sneak attack on the US. From this point on, the relationship between the two countries is tense, but never goes past that. They're separated by the largest ocean on Earth, and without some instigation, it stays like that. For some reason out of FDR's control, the United States never enforces an oil embargo on Japan. Instead, he remains in Washington, frustrated that the Americans have to sit out the war. Britain is on the edge of a Nazi Europe, and the Soviets have been invaded. The public, however, doesn't want to send their men off to die like they did in the Great War. Only 8% supported a war against Germany. Congress would never vote for such a thing, and it stays that way. With no war between Japan and America, Hitler never blunders into declaring war on the US. FDR can never send over troops, as none of the public wants to get involved. By December 7th, 1941, the Japanese have been fighting another enemy on the frozen coasts of eastern Siberia. Japan is at war with the Russians. Both the United States and Soviets posed a threat to Japan. However, Japan chose to go to war with only one. With no embargo, the US isn't that target. With Germany invading the Soviets from the west, the Japanese saw it as a good opportunity to seize the less defended Siberian coast. With such a long distance, it'd be difficult to reinforce it as well, so they carried out an invasion of the USSR. For the last few months, the Japanese have been fighting a harsh war against the defending Russians. To compensate for their lack of armor, they chemical bombed cities dotting the border, killing hundreds of thousands to lighten up defenses. Throughout 1942, their advancement, just like their German counterpart, begins to stall. The war was won with Russian blood, and the Soviets, with their vast manpower, still push back Germany. In Europe, without the Americans, D-Day cannot happen, not like it did in our timeline. Eventually, Berlin would have to fall to the Russians, and more troops would be sacrificed to defend the Eastern Front, even if that means leaving France and other occupied territories open. The Nazis didn't believe in retreat, especially for Germany. With a drastically smaller enemy, only now could a D-Day-like invasion occur, involving a smaller force of British and Canadians. Even if the wait was a few months, the Soviets are able to invade further west in this timeline, seizing all of Germany and Eastern Europe in the process. Germany isn't divided between East and West in this alternate world. All of Germany is simply communist. Meanwhile, in the East, the Japanese can't hold back the Soviets, as more reinforcements arrive after the fall of Germany. Japan now is facing the full might of the USSR. Instead of their empire falling piece by piece thanks to American island hopping in the Pacific, Japan might face an actual worse fate. Stalin was quite vengeful. The Japanese teamed up with Hitler, caring little for the lives of his own troops. Such a bloody, devastating invasion could be very possible. The Japanese face an actual invasion for the first time in history, and by the end, they are virtually obliterated as a society. Stalin helps them rebuild, but sets up a puppet communist government. To America, who has sat out of the war, all they witness is the new rise of Soviet global dominance. In Europe, only Britain, France, and perhaps the Scandinavian countries remain democratic. All of East Asia has fallen to communism as well. It is in this moment, the end of World War II, with a Soviet victory, where the concept of isolationism begins to end. To the public, staying out of the war brought nothing but glory for the Reds. The United States is in a world where its ideals are more alone than ever. Perhaps this is the spark that awakens the American machine. Not a machine for war, but a machine to prepare for what many assume will be the next fight. If the Japanese Empire lost the war at home, then perhaps its large navy and territory could have remained. But now that territory is just in the hands of a Soviet puppet state. Because of this new world, a mentality, much like in our own timeline, could arise. To protect themselves, the West would need a special type of weapon. One that was conceived years back but never truly tested. Perhaps it might even things out in the inevitable next conflict. World War III, the nuclear bomb. However, this is simply one scenario. We'll never truly know what would have happened had things gone differently. But it's always a fun idea to think about these things, how history happens, and the world that we live in today because of it. This is Cody of Alternate History Hub. This video was sponsored by Skillshare. Skillshare is an online learning community with 17,000 classes in videography, productivity, photography, and more. If you have a passion, Skillshare has a lesson for it. For me, since I create videos, I found the most helpful lessons was in editing and writing. If you have a Mac, I would highly recommend visual storytelling with Final Cut Pro. It's a great starting guide for those getting into editing on a Mac. If you're into writing as well, I would also recommend Writing for Consistency, Finding Your Creative Voice to be a good inspiration for aspiring writers. Premium membership begins around $10 a month for unlimited access to learning, but the first 700 members who click on the link in the description below will get 2 months for free. Click quick because space is limited and might go fast. Either way, if you're getting into a new field, Skillshare could be the gateway to learning more. So click on the link down below to get started. This is Cody of Alternate History Hub.